cover? Well, we're going to cover the blackjack card. We're going to talk about the players having 10 or 11, and is there a difference? We're going to talk about hitting on 17. We're going to talk about how to deal with other players, side bets, the basic rules of gambling, and why I made these videos as well. So let's first start talking about, in the game of blackjack, again, we have what we call the basic strategy card. And a lot of individuals talk about this card. They become sort of obsessed with it and thinking that the basic strategy is the only part to the game. Even though it's called basic, they don't really realize that there might be a few levels in education above basic strategy. We're not talking about card counting either. Card counting is at the top. Now, the card in itself, if we really think about it, in the first video we talked about having a jar full of white marbles, which are winners, and black marbles, which are losers. Now, in our example, we're going to have 50 black marbles with losers and 50 white ones in the jar. Now, in the game of blackjack, an individual who doesn't know how to play at all theoretically could keep hitting his or her hand and lose every hand. Now, in that case, the player would lose every hand, and let's say they played 10 hands and they bet $10 a hand. So now they've lost $100. Well, what are the chances that we believe that player is going to keep playing? One of the reasons that players play games is they like the game, right? It's the marketing of the game. For some reason, they like the card games, or they like the dice game, or the roulette wheel, whatever that is. Well, the individual that keeps hitting and loses all of her money, well, what are the odds that that particular person is going to want to play that game again? Very, very little. He or she's not having any fun at the game. Part of the fun of the game is winning the game. Well, here comes the basic strategy card. So the individual has 100 black marbles in the jar. The basic strategy card actually puts more white marbles, winning marbles, out of the 100 in the jar. Well, how many? Well, maybe 40 or so, depending on if you adhere to the card strictly. Now, why would the casino want to give a player a card that actually puts more white marbles in that particular player's jar when they're picking, right? Every hand they're picking out of this jar, and now here we pick the white one, which is a winner. Why would they want to put more white marbles in the jar of the player that already has 100 black marbles in their jar? Very simple, right? That the casino knows that that particular player that has 100 marbles in his or her jar, they're not coming back. While the casino may win $100 from that particular individual, they know that the card where it allows you to win, but they're never going to give you more than 50 white marbles, so that it seems like you're winning, so now you enjoy the game, but over the longer term, you don't really realize how much you are losing because it's close to even, right? 40 white marbles, 60 black marbles. See, this is really the reason for the card. The card really is the nicotine to the cigarette. The nicotine is the card to the blackjack game. It becomes addicting because the individual thinks that card is sort of the holy grail to the game, when in reality, it's the addiction of the game. For you to come back to the game over a long period of time, you're going to lose, in our example, a lot more than $100. Unfortunately, while most people go to a casino for special occasions, maybe on a Friday night, the casinos really are not able to stay in business by only those couples that go out on New Year's. They have to create a client, just like any other business. And that card is the addiction to creating that long-term client. Now, let's talk about the differences between having a 10 or an 11 on your hand. Now, in front of me here, I have an 8 and a 3 and an 11. The dealer has a 5 up card. And from the first video, we know that there's only 13 cards to be concerned with that we're going to get. Suits don't matter. So here's how this works and how it applies to poker. That when you have an 11 and you place your bet, now you want to double your bet. Now that's a significant variable that many don't really consider. You're putting out twice the amount of your money in this given situation of picking basically out of this jar full of 100 marbles. Now when you're doubling your bet, you want to be able to have as many white marbles in that jar as possible. What we're going to look at today is let's just see how many white marbles out of 100 you actually do have when you have an 11 and you're going to double down and you're going to put out twice the amount of money that you have. Okay? So here's how this works. On an 11, we go through all of the cards. What card will improve your hand to where you think the hand will be a winning hand? This is with the dealer having a 5-up card. This is where the poker terminology comes into thinking now. So an 11, we know that we've got only 4 10s, 4 out of 13. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. The 9 would probably improve our hand to being a winning hand. That's 5. The 8, 6, the 7, 7. 7 cards that we can get that will improve our hand that'll probably be a winning hand. Now the one that's a 6 is a 17, to which the dealer has to stay on as well, but which may be a tie. But in this case, let's just look at a winning hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now from the first video, we know that because we only have 13 cards, if you take 1 divided by 13, 1 divided by 13, you get 0.077. That's the percentage chance that you're going to get any one of these 13 cards. So all you do is you take 0.077 times the number of cards that will improve your hand to which you think will be a winning hand. In this case, it's 7. So times 7, that's 53.9. We'll say 54. Well, isn't that interesting? So now you have 54 white balls in the jar and 54 and 46 black ones. Well, now that's 50-50. Now, if you have a $10 bet, well, maybe you do put another $10 out there. But in the case if you were a $10 bettor and you have $100 out there, well, do you really want to put double your bet for a 50-50 chance? Now, granted, the dealer could bust, which in the case in here with a 5-up, that is likely. Now, that does put a few more white marbles in your jar. So you have a little bit more than 54 white marbles. But still, it's not overwhelmingly in your favor. Enough that maybe thinking about this will sway you from taking the hit on, taking the double on 11, depending on your situation. Now, depending on if you're up, depending on if you're using the house's money. You may be more inclined for a 50-50 bet in doubling your bet if you're up and you're using the house's money. If you're using your money, you may not want to double your bet on 11 on a 55-45 situation. See what I'm saying? This is how to look at this by realizing there's only 13 cards to be concerned with, and each card represents a 0.077% chance of it coming out. Now, let's change the scenario, and let's say that now you have a 10. The same situation. Now, is there a difference between having an 11 or a 10? Maybe. Let's take a look. On the 10, now, realize on the 11, we didn't include the ace. That's the card we don't want to see. So when if you get, and many of you have hit on double down on 11 and got an ace. Now, how many of you have taken a look at the whole board to see if you see any aces out on the board? How many of you have looked at the previous round to see if there were any aces out on the board? If you don't see any aces on the previous round, and you don't see any aces on the current round, and you're at third base and you see hit cards coming out and you don't see any aces, well, not only is the fact that there's only 54 white balls in the jar anyway on an 11, or a little bit more, now you realize there's a higher likelihood maybe that the ace is coming. Now that's another reason maybe not to double your money, and or if it's the house's money or your money. Wow. Now there's a few things to think about that maybe weren't being thought about before, other than the robotic nature of just doubling on 11 no matter what. So let's take a look at the 10. Now the 10 will go through the same sequence again. So now, how many cards will improve your hand that we think will beat the dealer when you have a 10? Well, now we get to include the ace. One more card. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 with the 17. 7, 7 again, 7 to 8 with the ace. So now, if it's 7 again, we're going to have the same scenario. If you want to include the 7, now we're at 60 white marbles or a little bit more. But the bigger picture is really to see, one, when you're taking this double, how many picture cards are out on the table? We already talked about that there should be 4 picture cards total out of the 13 cards that are up on the initial deal. Now you get to observe again, right? So if you haven't seen many aces and you don't see many picture cards, you can, to put double your money out there necessarily is something you want to think about. In addition to that, the dealer's hole card, if you haven't seen many picture cards or many aces, the dealer's hole card could be a low card for the same reason that you don't want to take a double. Now, if the dealer has a 5 or a 6 or a 4, all of a sudden you've doubled. Now you're going to lose, right? How many times have you seen that happen? Well, this is the given scenario that does take place. Now, is there a difference if the dealer has a 6 instead of a 5? Well, maybe as well. Why is that different? That's different because the dealer can get an ace and stay on 16 or stay on 17, to which if you have less than that, you're going to lose. But initially you have less than that because you thought they were going to bust. If a 5 is up, I'm more inclined to stay on a lower hand on a 5 because it's a better chance, one more card, 7.7% better chance that the dealer is going to bust, because now if they get an ace, they still have a chance to bust. Another thing to think about between the difference between a 5 and a 6 that the dealer has and the difference between a 10 and 11 that you have. Now, we want to talk about when you make these different types of plays, that especially if you're at third base, you're the last person to act. Now, for basic strategy players at the table, especially if you're looking at the table and you're thinking, they may be thinking that you don't know what you're doing because you're not the robot of knowing exactly what to do based on 2 cards and 1 card. You're taking a look at 15 cards, 20 cards. Players have a tendency to get impatient and tell you what to do. Now, if you don't do what they tell you to do, and you make an odd type of move, and it doesn't work out, and somehow now the table loses in the effect that they would have won, they don't look at you in a very good light. So you need to be able to have a very still center in this, because you realize that you know more about the game than they do. The tendency is to try to explain to these players what the situation is. It normally doesn't work. You won't even get across to them that there's only 13 cards to be concerned with. You're going to get frustrated. They'll get frustrated with you. It's just not a good situation. So some comebacks that we want to have, if you want to have some comebacks, would be that when the player next to you is going before you and they have a hand that you know that they should hit, potentially what you want to say to that player is, oh, don't hit that. Don't hit your hand. I want the next card that the dealer has. I want that card. Wow. Now, especially on a hand that player should hit. Now they're going to say to you, what are they going to say? Hey, this is my hand. I mean, you can hit when I'm done, it's your turn. Oh, well, isn't that interesting? Okay, well, then right back at you, right? So if I can't influence what you do in your hand because I want the next card, well, then don't influence what I do when it's my turn. That's one comeback. Now, the next comeback is that if they complain about a situation and a hand and the way you played it, you want to say to them, well, did you take into account when you were making your decision before me what I was going to do? Oh, wow. Now that'll really throw them because they're going to have to think, did they take into account that I would actually hit this hand where normal people wouldn't? Did you take that into account? Well, we know they didn't. But if they say that, well, no, I didn't, well, why didn't you? Well, because I only look at my 2 cards in the dealer card. Well, okay, then what difference does it make what I do? You see? Now, the logic there, I mean, maybe some people will see that, but I mean, what difference does it make then? You didn't take into account my hand, so what difference does it make what I do? I mean, I get the emotion around it, but the thinking is if you're logically doing something that makes sense because there's more white marbles in the jar than black, and it makes sense to you, go ahead and do it. I mean, the unfortunate thing is, part of the game is, really, you don't care about anybody else other than yourself. Yes, if you can make a move, which you will do at third base on occasion, that helps the whole table, and it's a good feeling, but I mean, you're in this game for yourself. I mean, what are these people after the game's over? They're not thinking about you. I mean, you're trying to improve your hand. You're not trying to improve everybody else's hand. So now, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight between doubling. Now, there are occasions when you double that you may have, in a situation with a 10 or 11, you may have 70 some white balls in your jar to the dealer's 30, to the house's 30. Now, that is a significant advantage. And those opportunities don't come along very often. That's why the tendency is to double. Okay, we get that. So let's assume we have a situation. Now we have 70 white balls in the jar. We have a good situation. The board is good, where we think a picture card is going to come out. We double. Well, look, just like in poker, when we see that when there's a race in poker, that one person has a 70% chance and the other person has a 30% chance, I mean, 30 black marbles in this jar, there's a pretty good likelihood you could pick one, that you're going to even lose in the best situation you could be in the poker game. So think of it this way. Just like poker players who get aces feel that they should win the hand. But however, if there's 2 other people in the poker table that's in the hand, chances are it's 50-50 that the person that has aces is going to win if it's a race. Maybe that player can bet the other 2 players off the hand. But before the hand is dealt, the aces are a 50% chance. Even though the person feels like that they should win, what they really need to do, and why you want to raise with aces, is that you don't want more than 2 players in the hand. You want to get that third player out of the hand. Because now there is a difference. Now it could be, with aces, you could be 80-20 if the player has a lower pair. If the player doesn't have a pair, it's going to even be more white marbles in the jar. And if the player has ace-king, I think you might have up to 95 white balls in the jar, 5 black ones compared to the other player. See how this thinking comes into play? So let's assume that you have the situation that you want, you double your bet, and unfortunately, the dealer wins because you picked a black ball out of the 30 in the jar. Well, you're not too happy because most players feel that they're supposed to win that hand, especially when they bet twice as much. And you have a tendency to get emotional. So in poker, we call it on tilt. So what tends to happen after you lose twice your bet on a hand that you think you're going to win? Well, if you normally bet $10 or $20 a hand, you're going to say, hey, I'm going to get that money back that I should have won. Now you put out a bigger bet. Let's just assume you put out $50 bet when you normally bet 10 or 20. Now let's think about this logically. You just got through a hand where you had 70 white balls in a jar and you lost. We know this is a 50-50 game. The chances are that the next hand that you just put out more money to try to catch up, chances are you're not going to have 50 white, you're not going to have 70 white balls in this jar. You're not even going to have 50. You're probably going to have 40. And now you've just bet more. See, not a very good move. This is how emotion, being on tilt, and not understanding the game and just the advantages that you have and don't have, how emotion can play into it that actually makes you lose even more by changing your betting pattern. Is that helpful? Now, let's talk about something that you hardly ever see at the table, and basic strategy players, because the card says never hit on 17, they never do. Let's talk about hitting on 17. So we know, again, we have our 13 cards, and in this case, the dealer's card is a 10, and in this case, let's put the 10, and we have 17. We have 17. We're going to, well, actually, we're going to do a hard 17, because definitely with a soft 17 you would hit, but even with a hard 17. So here's the situation. You have 17, and the dealer has a 10 card up. Now, if you're playing and observing the whole table, and you observe the 6 spots, and you don't see 4 picture cards, you don't see 3 picture cards, maybe there aren't any in the extreme example, but maybe there's 1 or 2. Well, not only does conventional wisdom say that you should think the whole card is a 10, but now, because there aren't enough 10s out on the table, out of 4 out of 13 cards, it's even a higher likelihood that the dealer has a 10. Now you have 17. Now what? Well, let's talk a second about how many cards can improve your hand against the dealer's hand. Well, on 17, we know a 2 can improve your hand, a 3 can improve your hand, a 4 can improve your hand, and so can an ace. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cards can improve your 17 hand. Well, isn't that interesting? Because we've been using 4 cards for the 10s. So if conventional wisdom is you're thinking the whole card is always a 10, you're only right 31% of the time. Now, if you take a hit on 17, you're only going to improve your hand 31% of the time. Now, here's an interesting question. If you want to have some fun with the dealer, nobody takes hits on 17. Now, if you're a beginning player, or if you want to pretend like you're a beginning player, you're going to say to the dealer, should I take a hit? Or I want to hit. Now, they may say, well, you don't want to hit, it's 17. Well, what you say to the dealer, well, wait a minute, I thought you told me to think the whole card is a 10. If I think the whole card is a 10, you have 20, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Hopefully everybody can see the cards. Why not take a hit on 17? Why not improve your hand? I mean, if you're going to lose anyway, if you put the dealer on 20, why wouldn't you take a hit? Especially if you don't see many picture cards up. Why wouldn't you take a hit? I mean, so in doing, now what's the dealer going to say? The dealer is going to be very confused. And you'll have other players that will chime in. You'll hear all types of answers. But be very calm, because it's a very legitimate common sense question, especially if they think that you don't know what you're doing. So they're going to say, or somebody that may have some insight, well, the reason that you don't hit on 17 versus a 10, even though you're supposed to think it's 20, is because there's times where it's not 20. Oh, is that so? Well, what percentage of the time wouldn't it be a 20? Now put that question out to them. You already know the answer. The percentage of the time that it's not a 20 is 31%. You already know that answer. They don't know that answer. So that the reason, it's almost, see, it's so convoluted because in certain situations you shouldn't think it's a 10, even though they tell you to think it's a 10. But yet if you have less than 20, they tell you to stay. It doesn't make any sense. If you're new to the game, somebody hearing this would be like, well, of course, that makes common sense. Veterans of the game will try to give you answers that they don't make any sense. You're actually going to confuse them. But some of the reasons that you wouldn't take a hit, but you need the given situation in the Wheel of Fortune puzzle to basically take the hit, right? Where you don't see a lot of picture cards. Or you do, I'm sorry, look, I'm getting confused. Where you do see the picture cards and you're going to potentially get the little cards. But you understand what I'm saying? That there are times for, depending on the board, for you to take the hit on 17. It's actually a logical play. Okay, let's also, we want to talk about, in Blackjack, we want to talk about side bets. And we all know that there are side bets at a poker table. Now, the general rule would be, I would never want to put money on a side bet that is the money that I brought to the table. So that if you're up and then you're winning, okay, now you want to place, if you want to place a side bet. I mean, we all know we shouldn't be in the casino to begin with. We know that there's going to be people that are going to be in the casino. Okay, so then now we know people are going to play blackjack. Now, we all know that the side bets, if they pay 10 to 1, actually they should be paying whatever, more. That's why it's a bad bet. You're not getting true odds like they talk about on the crap table. It's a bad bet because you're not, if you do win, you're not going to get paid the correct amount. We already know that, but we already know people are going to do it anyway. So here's a little bit of thinking behind it. So bet small, and then if you're winning, if you want to place a side bet, you're placing it with the house's money. But you want to place that side bet also with the least amount of money possible, $1. Now, so you put $1 out there, and you get lucky, and they pay you 9 to 1, 8 to 1, whatever it is. Now, most people keep the money, but this is the wrong way to think about it. This is now the house's money again. Now, what you want to do here is that you want to parlay that bet. You want to take all $9, now you want $10 of the house's money on the side bet. Now, if it hits again, you've now won $90 or $100. Originally, the first dollar was the house's money. Well, now you keep the $100, right? Now you're up. That's how you leverage a bad bet. You limit it to the dollar that's the house's money. If you then get lucky and you win, you have to parlay the house's money on the bet. Then you want a back-to-back win. Now you actually, for $1, you're winning 100. That's a pretty good return on investment. That's going to get you to be a winner at the end of the night. Instead of slowly losing, you may play longer, but you're slowly losing and you're going to lose at the end of the night. And that would go with any of the side bets. There's other side bets out there as well. But let's talk about the side bet of the 2 Queen of Hearts. Those of you that play blackjack know there's a side bet of the 2 queen of hearts. Well, this is very simple. We know that when one deck, the chance of you being dealt a queen of hearts is what? 52 to 1. One deck, 1 queen of hearts. If you put 2 decks back on top of each other, what are the odds of you being dealt a queen of hearts? Well, 52 to 1. Doesn't matter how many decks. There's 1 queen out of 52 cards, no matter how many decks that you have. If you have 8 decks, the chance of you being dealt a queen of hearts, 52 to 1. Especially if you haven't seen any dealt. Again, the observation. Okay, so if it's 52 to 1, you get a queen of hearts. Now, the deal comes around. What's the odds of you getting another queen of hearts? Well, it's right around 52 to 1. Make it simple. A little less. Let's keep it simple. Well, if you take 52, now, to determine the odds of getting the queen of hearts and the queen of hearts, it's very simple. You take 52 times 52, approximately, right? 52 times 52, 2,700. So it's around 2,500, let's just say. 2,500 to 1. What are the odds that the casino pays you on 2 queens on a side bet at blackjack? And it isn't anywhere near 2,500 to 1. I think it's 200 to 1, 250 to 1. 10 times less, 1/10 of the actual true odds of what you should be getting paid. So while it seems like, a major big deal, and it is, you're going to win, but what you should be winning is 10 times more than what the casino is going to pay you. Now, in all fairness, there are other bets there are other hands that they will pay you in addition to the 2 queen of hearts, that those odds are a little bit better. So the true odds on those other bets, let's just say true odds are 10 to 1, they're paying you 12 to 1, 15 to 1. They're actually paying you a little bit more. They don't mind paying you 15 to 1 on a 10 to 1 bet, but what they don't want to do is pay you 2,500 to 1, or they want to pay you 250 or 200 to 1 on a 2,500 to 1 shot. That's what they don't want to do. Now, let's go through and talk a little bit about some basic rules of gambling. Now, while we all know that the house is not going to have more than 50 white marbles in any game in the casino, other than blackjack that we talked about in the first video. What we want to do is, if you make the choice to go to a casino, you now want to be educated enough to be able to put more white marbles in your jar. Either to lose less, you'll have a better time, or on occasions that you can even win, and then you'll even have a better time. What's better than money earned versus money won? Money won is pretty sweet. Money won, there's something about that you're able to spend on items that makes you feel pretty good. You're able to buy things that you maybe normally wouldn't buy. And isn't it sort of interesting that if you do well and you win at a casino, how long does it take for that money to go from something that's a little different that you're willing to spend on to when it becomes your money, just like money that you've earned? I don't know how long that is, but there is a time period that it does start to become just like money that you've earned. Maybe it's a couple hours, a day, a week, but it sort of converts over. So let's go through quickly some of the basic rules to gambling. Now, one would be you don't want to take your wages or take-home pay to a casino. That's sort of obvious, right? I associate that instead of taking money to a casino, if we actually were dealing in marbles, your wages and take-home pay are like gold marbles. You don't want to take gold marbles to a casino. They're too valuable, right? There's a lot of emotion that's tied to gold marbles, which is you worked hard for those wages. So what happens if you take gold marbles to a casino? Well, there's more emotion. Now, if you lose gold marbles, you tend to get on tilt. You want to get those gold marbles back. If you can only get the gold marbles back that you lost, you would feel good and you'd basically quit. But unfortunately, we know the seesaw isn't going to happen. So it gets you more on tilt. You want to have a still center if you're going to the casino. The more emotion that you put into it, the more likelihood that you're going to make wrong decisions. So, the money that you get for Christmas, a bonus maybe, dividends from an investment, those are all green marbles. They're not quite as valuable as your hard-earned take-home pay, which we call the gold marbles. When you go to a casino, you want to bet small at first, right? For obvious reasons. We know the odds aren't in your favor, so you want to bet the least amount possible. Now, if you win, now you're betting with the house's money. The going on tilt is, something that you want to avoid, right? So that in poker, coming back to the player that has aces, again, we feel that we should win. And when you lose with aces, you tend to go on tilt. And we saw before that really aces, if there's more than two players in the hand, it's a 50-50 proposition. Realizing that it's a 50-50 game allows you to play, and your emotions are different when you're playing aces. When you realize that you have a 10 or 11 up and you're doubling your bet, that there's probably 30 black marbles in the jar, your emotions are a little bit different so that you don't overbet on the next hand and lose more. See what I'm saying? The nature of all of these games, again, to go back to the beginning, the nature of these games, it's a 50-50 game. The casinos want to make the game 45 white balls, 55 black ones, or 40 white balls, 60 black ones. They toy with that because they want you to win. They don't want you to track your losses, even though over the longer term, there's no way for you to win if there's more than 50 black balls in the jar. That's the point. That's the reason they want to give the card to the basic strategy player that doesn't know how to play, who has 100 black balls in their jar. So let's also talk about, we talked about the side bet. Now, okay, here's what we want to talk to the females that are watching this video. Now, we all know New Year's is coming up. Those females that are watching this have now become better educated that you're going to have a better chance either to lose less or to actually win. Hopefully you win. You're going to have a better time if you win. The females are mostly going to the casino on New Year's to have a good time. Yes, they want to win, but they want to have a better time. The typical stereotype of the male, the husband or boyfriend, is that they're very competitive. They want to win. And now all of a sudden, we're mixing on New Year's, right? You're probably with other couples. The female is going to the casino in hopes that this is going to be different, that with New Year's, hopefully the husband, the boyfriend, we're going to have a good time. The female has already seen what happens on other times when you go to a casino and the husband or boyfriend is losing. It's actually the females are not having a good time. They don't even want to go anymore with their husband or boyfriend because he becomes an ass, so to speak, right? Everybody has seen that. So now the female, she gets with her girlfriends, their boyfriends and husbands. Now we have a group going to the casino. Well, take a look at this perfect storm. We now have New Year's, we have gambling, we have drinking, and probably now we're taking an Uber, which now means that the husband or boyfriend is probably going to drink even more. Now we know that the husband, even though you tell him to listen to the video, probably, he won't do it because he already knows everything about gambling. So the odds are he's going to lose. So here you are. Hopefully, I can help you that if you're winning, you're having a good time. Your husband is now, boyfriend, drinking, he's losing. Now, isn't it worth it to be able, when the husband comes over, for you to give him some money because he's down? It's the house's money. Wouldn't you pay the house's money to your husband or boyfriend so that you can have a good time? So that the husband or boyfriend doesn't become belligerent and insult one of your girlfriends? Now there's big drama. Now you're not having a good time. Now there's an argument in the Uber car. Now you go home and go to bed and you're all upset. Now, probably in that scenario that we've all seen, we all know this movie. And probably that the losing and the belligerent behavior is going to start in the middle of the night. So you're going to be so upset, you're going to start drinking because now you know you don't have to drive either because of the Uber. You're going to take the Uber. The night turns into a complete disaster. But at least this way, you know that at least you have a chance of winning and employing some of these techniques. Now finally, the reason that I made these two videos, two reasons. The first reason is, I have an investment firm, and what we want to sort of get across is the value we can bring to the table with investing. That what we've presented here to help basic strategy players, well, is the same thing that we can help with basic strategy investors. We can think a little bit more deeply. Now, even though we're playing the same blackjack game as the basic strategy players, but we're just playing it a little bit differently. We're thinking about the game differently, and ultimately we're going to make better decisions to eventually help you lose less or win a little bit more. The same thing is with investing. We're still investing in the same stock market, but we're able to add a lot of value to basic strategy investing. Now, would we want to work with professional poker players? Absolutely. We understand the situation that the professional poker player is in, and we can tailor our services to that particular type of player. We do have international tax attorneys that we can make referrals to for the unique needs that the professional poker player has because of playing in tournaments, dealing with large amounts of money, playing in different states, and even playing around the world. So go to my website, Aiken Research Group, give us a call, and we'd be happy to help you in your situation as a poker player. That's the first reason. Secondly is, unfortunately, even though, as adults, we should have the freedom to enjoy ourselves, to go on occasions to a casino. A lot of us will be going on New Year's. But unfortunately, some individuals have the addictive gene of compulsive gambling, right? Some of us don't, some of us do. And unfortunately, if these two videos has helped that individual realize that it's not about him or her not having the ability to catch up to get the even. Nobody can catch up to get the even when the jar full of marbles is tipped more black ones than white ones. So it's not the gambler, it's that it doesn't work, right? If I can get the addicted gambler to understand this and realize it's an uphill battle you don't want to fight, right? Especially if you become addicted and you're using your wages, now all of a sudden you may lose your job. Now it affects your family. Now you lose your family and kids. Are you kidding me? Right? There's far more endeavors out there that you can put your energy to make money than, get addicted to a game that you can't beat. And hopefully if I can help one person avoid that pain, it's worth it, right? It's worth it. And then to all of the others, to be able to enjoy your night, to be able to win occasionally and have fun, I think is a lot of value. Now to you female watchers of the video, when you have the enjoyable night, when you don't have the drama, you're going home in the Uber car happy, you go to bed happy, well, what happens? The next day when you wake up, you're the winner, your husband's the loser. Hey hubby, I think since you borrowed money from me and I'm the winner, maybe you can make breakfast this morning. And when you say to him or her, hey, did you watch the video that I told you about? And he'll say, what video? Well, females already know their husbands or boyfriends don't listen to them. Well, the video I told you to watch. Oh, that video is a bunch of nonsense. You know, I know how to gamble. Okay, hon, I'll take a couple scrambled eggs and bacon, please. So, when you're out on New Year's, hopefully this helps. If you have positive experiences, hopefully you can comment on the YouTube video below. I'd be happy to hear it. And if you want to on New Year's, salute. Hopefully you're a winner. And you know, I'm just happy to be able to present these two videos. And good luck and have a great 2016. Thanks.